for the Town of Brunswick Planning Board for January 4th, 2024. If everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, this is our first meeting for 2024. And our agenda as it was posted on the town website and the town board is as follows. Number 1, Marie's Muse LLC site plan. Applicant seeks to construct a drive-through restaurant and a retail building on the eastern portion of the site and a second drive-through restaurant on the western portion of the site at 727, 737 Brunswick Road and 4 Mohawk Avenue. Marie's Muse LLC is the applicant. Number 2, Riser, waiver of subdivision. Applicant seeks a lot line adjustment for property located off Plank Lane. Henry Riser is the applicant. Our order of business tonight would be first to review the minutes of our last meeting on December 21st, 2023. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Are there any questions, corrections, amendments, additions? Okay, hearing none, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as they were submitted. There's a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And one abstention. Okay, thank you. Okay, just as an additional organizational thing we have to do, at a meeting of the town council on January 2nd, there was an organizational meeting, at which point Nemo Krieger was appointed to a 7-year term. This has expired at the end of 2023, and I was appointed the chairman of the planning board for 2024. Now, Nemo, was that your second term?
Yes.
Second term. Welcome back. Okay, moving forward with our agenda tonight. First item is the Marie's Muse LLC. I don't see anybody here for them. However, there is something we should discuss regarding that. We'll put them on hold, hoping they will come in later in the meeting. But one of the things we have to possibly look at is to maybe amend the lead agency coordination. Previously, there were several categories on that lead agency. And one was parties of interest and parties of...
Right, technical terms are involved agencies and interested agencies.
And the county highway department was interested. And we'd like to suggest that they move them to the next category up. So we can have a little discussion on that. And Wayne, this is basically based on the fact that Chestnut Avenue was a county road and maybe some issues
Right.
there.
And that's why we had them as an involved agency at first.
Yeah.
But comments came back notably from New York State that had some significant comments on the impacts to the county road. Notably, perhaps they suggested the applicant look at adding a lane, like a turn lane in there to kind of mitigate any backups on McChesney Avenue. So the potential is there that the county could be significantly impacted by the project. But I think that we should consider making them involved in this, or giving them, an opportunity.
Okay. In connection with that, there are obviously anything here. Did you hear anything back as far as any information that we were requesting regarding stacking at other sites and so forth?
Yeah, since the last meeting, I've got no correspondence from the applicant nor their traffic consultant.
Okay.
In their email on the 28th, they indicated they want to be on the agenda for the 18th.
Okay. I don't know if I,
Oh, sorry.
is that somebody else?
Sorry.
Okay,
I had a stack on.
you disregard that then. What is it procedurally? Do we have to reissue a lead agency notice?
Yeah, that would be recommended. So on the initial lead agency notice, the county highway department was listed as an interested agency. Because at that point, it didn't appear that they would have permit or approval over the project. We listed them as interested because their road goes into that intersection. Based on New York State DOT's comments that potentially they may be looking at an additional turn lane, is that right, Mark? On McChesney, that would require county highway review and approval. And because of that, I think it's advisable procedurally to recirculate lead agency, putting the county highway department now as an involved agency, and go through that process again. But would not want any procedural issue on not having properly coordinated lead agency. So it's a recirculation of the lead agency. Presuming no other agency objects, you would just reconfirm your status as secret lead agency.
Just a quick question for Wayne. In the past, we've ran into several situations where the radiuses on McChesney Avenue were inadequate. If in fact it comes to there's a turning lane put on, is that something that could be incorporated in that to clean that whole corner up?
It could be an opportunity to improve the turning radiuses. I don't know if there's enough room just to add on to one side of McChesney.
Yeah.
There might have to be a shift to fit any kind of extra lane in there, so they may have to reconstruct that entire interface with Route 7 to make it all work, which would be an opportunity to improve that radius coming off 7 into Chestnut.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Any questions on us renoticing the lead agency coordination? Do we need that in the form of a motion to do that?
Not a bad idea. Just move to recirculate lead agency, including New York State, strike that Brunswick County Highway Department as an involved agency. And I'm going to presume that it's still your intent to serve as lead agency. Okay, that'd be part of it.
Before I make that motion, is there possibly any other agencies that we may?
Well, I don't think so. We sat down and reviewed that and listed out what we thought were all the involved and interested agencies. So this is really just reclassifying the county highway department from interested to involved based on New York State DOT's comments. So I don't think there's going to be any additional agencies.
Then I will make that motion. Do I have a second? Second. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we'll put hopefully they'll show up. We'll put them on hold right now and move on to our second item on the agenda, which is Riser, Waverville subdivision. Come on up, Henry. Now, at our last meeting, one of the requests I believe from Dave Carmel was he'd like to see a copy of the original one that we approved versus the now proposed. We're calling it a waiver right now, but I'm not so sure it's going to stay with it. So I did get a copy of the two drawings on my email. Did anybody else get those?
I have an original here, if you want to look at it.
Okay.
Original stamp copy of the initial subdivision.
Okay.
Henry, you don't need to do that. I got one too for the building department today. So
I just got it on email. My printer was not.
Certainly not that-
any justice.
certainly not that large, right?
So why don't we, let's move down and see if we share that. There seems to be a lot of concerns about this new lot 13. Obviously, it's not on the original one.
Right, the original one was it's the existing driveway that was going up the last fall.
Okay. And then now you've moved the driveway over and using basically the one you use now, not the
Right.
old one. Is the older one the one with the gate on it?
Yes.
Okay. And I think there was some concerns also on all the different lot line adjustments that you had in the larger parcels and in the house plan. I was told today also that there was some issues that there was not one tax number for the two combined parcels, the one that's owned by your wife and the one that's owned by you. Has that been filed or anything like that?
Yes, I actually gave a copy of the filed map and I dropped it off to you.
Yep.
That was the receipt of the filed deed for the property for the 130 acres, the additional land.
Okay.
And I believe on can I put this on use the easel?
Yeah.
Like,
For the easy This is 1110. This is this lot. Okay, you have the floor, Henry.
So basically, right here is Plant Lane, and that was with the prior subdivision. And this was the existing driveway, you come right through here, and then connect to where that goes up to the house. So, this is gonna stay the same, just adding the lot line for the waiver for lot 13. This was an existing, access to the remaining land where this driveway is. And so, basically what we're doing is basically the same as when I was in here last. We did the lot line adjustment. There has been some changes in the actual lot line adjustment from the one that was approved in April. And that was just because of, it was done quickly and it made more sense to where it is now. There's only a couple lines that are different, other than that, see the driveway itself, right there. So basically, what we're trying to do is use the existing entrance for lot 13, have that as a separate lot, and then the remainder of land that was on the one tax map with 70 acres, and then there's a second tax map number right there, which is the remainder of the land, and combine those together so that, it's all on one deed, one map, and one tax bill, rather than getting multiple bills. And then, each of the three parcels is now to be three parcels. You got the lot here, you'll have this frontage on Plant Lane, and then the remainder of the land has about 125 feet of frontage here. That's for the remainder of the land. And then the existing house, lot 12, has about 75 feet of frontage. So each parcel now still has frontage and separate, so all on the road. And that.
So I'm under the impression that the lot line adjustment or waiver that we approved, say a year ago,
That's back in April.
Was never filed.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, so, we did it, and then, mostly to put the lot on 8 acres rather than having it on 70 was for financing, and we didn't end up having to do the financing that we did here, so I had a little more time to think about it, so we just basically made these changes, because for the property itself, it makes more sense. We use this, basically it's like a private road that we use to get up back and forth there. And, that gate right there is gonna be taken out of there, and it'll just be used as a regular driveway. Off the Plant Lane. We're really not adding anything to Plant Lane because that house was originally using that driveway. So it'll just be the same use. And then this other road is already there too. So we're really not changing anything as far as, excavation or slate work or anything like that in order to accomplish this.
So this outside, this outer driveway that you have getting to your house now, virgin built?
Yeah, that's, it was always there. It was a secondary access to the property. If you look at the original map, in this one, it was basically
Looks like it came from some kind of big open area and then branched off.
yeah, it was
Came to this big open area and then branched off.
yeah, right here was the access. It still is the same spot.
Yeah.
Now it just continues like this, and go straight across rather than going like that. And this road right here was the original for the house. That'll be part of the lot, the new lot. Okay. So this is basically all going right there. It just goes straight like that. It just, I think it was the original farm road, and there was a farmhouse there at one point. They, just been clearing brush and cleaning up saplings and stuff like that around there. And that roadway was right straight up through there. And the gate always gives us trouble, nobody can ever get in and out, so that's gonna go.
Yeah.
Eventually. What was the question about the tax numbers?
Well, apparently there's, on the latest drawing that you gave us, there is not a tax map number for the big parcel because it involves two parcels. It says remaining lands area, 311 acres.
They have, what is the 71 acres right now, the tax map number is right here, where it says new lot or revised lot.
Yeah,
So that's the tax map, that's for the 71 acres, which would now be the 8 acres. Because the rest of the land is going to be attached to this tax number right here, which will be the remaining land now. So there'll just be two tax numbers, one for the lot, one for the remaining land, and then there'll be one made up for the new lot.
So this tax map number 104-3-14.23.
You're gonna read that.
the one I think she's talking about, go towards the corner of that, yeah, down there.
Is that for the remaining?
That's gonna be the new remaining lands.
Yeah, it's already the remaining land, it's existing as that, but it's gonna be just a different acres to it. So there'll be two tax map numbers now.
I think the problem I have is trying to get my head around the fact that we did a waiver back in April. However, it was never filed. Is that null and void that?
Correct.
So now
We
we're,
have filed a
so now
plat.
we're back to no waivers approved.
That's correct.
I mean, technically it was.
It was reviewed and approved by the planning board, it just didn't become legally effective because the plat wasn't filed in the county clerk's office. So the approval expired.
So he still now qualifies for a waiver on that property, not necessarily this mess, but, you know, but he does qualify for a waiver under the 7-year.
One of the factors this board takes into account for sure is whether there's been a waiver within the past 7 years.
Right.
If there has, then the board generally says we're not going to entertain it as a waiver. If there has not been, understand that the way the town subdivision regulations are, you still have the discretion to say, we'll treat it as a waiver, or we're going to require a different application, different issue than the 7 years.
But, I mean, well, if we approved a waiver back in April, that means that this one, technically, if that was never submitted or never approved, the waiver would qualify with the 7-year rule.
Right, so here's the one question I had, and maybe I'm just missing something, and I just want to make sure this is done correctly procedurally for the board, is my understanding on the one from, was it April, earlier? Dave?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, was all you were doing was making lot 12 smaller.
Right, that was a lot line adjustment, it
Correct.
wasn't really a waiver, but I don't know.
Well, it's the same thing under the Brunswick subdivision regs, but you were making lot 12 smaller for financing purposes, and that would have increased the remaining
Remaining land.
land.
Yeah.
And you're still making lot 12 smaller and increasing your remaining land,
Right,
but you're adding a new building lot.
right.
So that's for the board to determine how it wants to handle that. It's different than the lot line adjustment. This is it started with 2 lots in April for that land, and it would have been 2 lots. This is starting with 2 lots, and you're gonna end up with 3 lots. You're creating a new building lot. If you want to entertain that as a waiver, we looked at this afternoon. I don't think this implicates the whole major subdivision. Unless, do you own all the building lots still?
No. But one thing back on, having 2 lots and creating one, it was, the property that just got deeded to me from my wife was technically a lot, 130 acre lot in the back that we're combining to the land also. So
Where?
That
that's,
wasn't part of the original subdivision, correct?
No.
right, no, so that's, yeah, I'm not sure if it was or not. But,
No, it wasn't, because, when you look at the numbers, so on the original Gray Ledge map, lot 12 was 71 acres, and your remaining land was 251. So just doing rough math, it was 320 acres, plus or minus.
Right, so that's what it is now.
And that's what it is now.
312, 311 plus the 8.5,
That's correct.
so it's close.
So where's the extra 150 from your ex-wife?
That's what I'm saying, it was included in the original map. The land was, it was part of it. When he drew the survey map up, he included all that property, because we were together and it was gonna be all one. So if you look at the original subdivision map, that land is included in it. That's what I was saying, technically that lot up there, if we have 3 lots, we're just kind of getting rid of the one on top and we're making a new one on the bottom.
If you look at the tax map insert, it's a little bit clearer to see that where that 135 comes from.
That was a separate tax parcel.
Yeah.
This is the one I did in March, but that land right there is the property that I got deeded to me. That was always included in the whole project. If you look at the, just adding up the acreage was this.
Where is it on this one? This was the second page. Gray Ledge.
And so lot 12 would be 71 acres, and then the remaining land, what does that say for remaining land?
251.
Yeah,
But that included more than one parcel?
that included, it's really, it ended up in 3 separate tax map numbers. It was 71 acres for the lot 12, and then it had 105 acres was land around it, and then 130 acres that was in her name. So that was all included on the first subdivision map. That's how we always had the 300 and whatever acres. But it just was never deeded all onto one property. And that's what I'm trying to do now, to make it a lot cleaner, so it's just one deed, one property, rather than having all these separate deeds and so on and so forth. There's actually, if you look at the deed that I just filed, that actually has 3 tax map ID numbers. I don't mean to make things more difficult, but that 130 acres that you just gave to me, there's 3 tax maps. So they'll get all combined to one also. So you got those 3, you got the one land, and then you got the house. So it's like 4 different tax bills that I get. And by doing this, we're gonna just have the one for the house and then the one for remaining land. And then everything's just on one deed, and it's just a lot cleaner.
Just to clarify something, that back lot that was in your wife's name was included, as far as we can see, with the Gray Ledge
When we
Gray
first.
Ridge, is it Gray Ridge? Major subdivision that we addressed. That was always there.
That's why the acreage adds up to that.
Well, you know, I'm trying to figure out whether there was a flaw in the original
Well,
approval of the major subdivision.
so it looks like what was identified on the major subdivision plat as remaining lands actually had several parcels within.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so if we take what I think I understand as your proposal to its logical extreme, if there had been 4 lots within that remaining land and now you're merging them together, are you suggesting you could get 4 more building lots? Well, I get that, but that's what this means. You're kind of taking what had been depicted on the original plat as the remaining lands of Riser without indicating that that constituted more than 1 lot, and saying we're doing a revision to lot 12 to make it smaller. Get that? We're technically merging a bunch of parcels together within the remaining lands, and so we're not creating any more lots. And I'm proposing to add a lot 13, another building lot. And I'm really not adding any lots because I'm merging all these ones that did exist, which were originally depicted as remaining land, right?
Right.
Yeah. Again, that's building department and the board, but I get all that, but the original plat showed it as remaining lands, and this one is gonna be adding a new building lot. You are adding a building lot. I get you're merging parcels together.
Yeah.
But
I
you're
think we
gonna,
actually merged them when we did the original subdivision map, if you really think about it, right?
well, not if you kept getting tax bills, because you filed that plat,
Yeah, I don't know why you couldn't. all this-
and the county was still issuing your tax bills for the separate parcels, because that plat doesn't show you combining them. It
Yeah, I
just
think-
showed remaining lands.
The reason that we're getting a separate map is because the land was in her name, and it didn't just get.
Well, Henry, I can tell you that raises a whole bunch of questions about the original project approval, because I can't recall as we sit here whether there was authorization from that property owner to include in remaining lands with a
I don't
total
think
acreage.
that tax parcel was shown on the subdivision map. All he had was the remaining lands, without running the map all the way up and picking up that 130 acre lot.
It's only shown on the insert.
And I think the surveyor just put remaining lands of Riser because it was Libby Riser and Henry Riser's land.
With all due respect, Rod Michaels knows better than that, okay? He does. He's a stickler on his surveys. He knows better than
No,
that.
I know, I worked on it.
So Henry, where did lot 2, 3, and 4 go? They're not shown.
2, 3, and 4.
They're
They're,
Supposed to be over there.
They're on Penny Royal Lane or whatever it is.
yeah,
That's your driveway, isn't it?
no.
No.
No, Penny Royal Lane is, just because of the size of the map.
The town road.
There's lot number 1 right here.
Yeah.
And it would continue this way because this lot is over here, so just keep them going down.
They're all separate tax parcels.
So they're right off this map right here.
No, they're actually
That 130 acres is not shown.
Well, if you
on the
look at it,
subdivision
you
plat.
see how it's got the move.
It's in the location right here.
You can see
Ah,
the
flat.
flag here, but I guess, I think it's correct drawing.
It's just,
It didn't show.
Oh, I got you.
Okay.
it's shown as the remaining land.
So I don't know if it's saying maybe it should be 2 applications rather than one, a lot line adjustment for lot 12 and then, or a waiver are they both the same, a waiver application and a lot
It is
line?
both the same. I think the issue is whether, because you're creating a new building lot, whether it's a waiver or quite frankly, a minor subdivision. That I think is the issue before.
Is it part of the neighborhood?
Well,
How critical is that lot 313? Do you have that sold?
Well, my brother wants to buy a house there, so.
Okay, so it's, okay.
so this was approved in 2016. I know you filed the plat at the county in 2018. This issue arises because it would appear, if you're telling the board, a number of these, or maybe all of the building lots, no longer owned by Henry Reiser. He owns one lot, lot 12, and the remaining lands. So I don't view that as a amendment to the plat because these lots have already been transferred out. He's really amending, he's doing a re-subdivision, if you will, I guess you could call it that, of lot 12 and the remaining lands. Starts with 2 lots, technically, and he's gonna end up with 3, and that would include a new building lot. So I think it's properly viewed as adding a building lot, right? And
Probably shouldn't be called lot 13.
well, that's a fair point too, because by depicting as lot 13, you think it's part of that plat. I think it's re-subdividing, if you will, lot 12 and the remaining lands. And by doing that, you're adding a new building lot. Probably is better not to have it depicted as lot 13, I agree. And that's, again, building department and board on whether that should be reviewed, the re-subdivision of those 2 lots, lot 12 and the remaining lands, as a waiver or a minor subdivision.
If he did not change any of the lot lines in the remaining lands, and he only wanted to create, we're gonna call it lot 13, but it's actually lot 1,
Right.
would that qualify as a waiver? Probably.
That's not my decision.
No, I mean,
Right.
that would qualify, or if he chose not to create lot 13 and just did the lot line adjustments, that would qualify under
You've
the.
already treated that type of application through the waiver process, through the lot line.
So if you want to do both, you're into a minor subdivision. If you want to do one, you can do one, and probably, I'm just speculating with, upon further review by the building department, whether that's technically a waiver. But that would be an option that I would look at. One or the other, you want both, you're gonna have to file for a minor subdivision.
If we go that route, it could be done on 2 separate things, right? Because really now, the lot line adjustment is the most important thing, because we are actually doing financing on that. And then tell us to come back and create the extra lot, that's a subdivision, rather than dealing with it now.
That's certainly, the building department and the board can say, we would require a minor subdivision. Kind of given the history of the property, the minor subdivision review to create that additional building lot. They can do that, yeah.
Well, before we, go too far on this, I'd like to discuss this with the board, whether they would be comfortable with just doing the lot line adjustments and not having lot 13 created and treat it as a waiver. Or if you wanted to do lot 13 without the lot line adjustments, that could be considered a waiver. But if you wanted to do both, it would be considered at least a minor subdivision on the remaining lands, which I believe now is identified as lot 12. Would people be comfortable looking at it in that direction if we proceeded that way? Any comments? Dave?
Seems like he wants to do the lot line adjustment now for financing.
Yeah, it is a kind of a time factor thing, and I would just do the subdivision, but I think it's probably gonna take a little longer, just with the procedure of it. Or-
Well, you'd have to, you'd have to include a bunch of stuff on this map. If you have a minor subdivision, you gotta put topo on it and so forth and so on. There's a bunch of other things that have to be put on there, which you already had it done
Yeah, I have the topo for the last.
on the previous subdivision, for most part of it. And you'd have to have a public hearing. I just don't see any way around this. I mean, if you want to do both, now it's going to have to be considered a minor subdivision off Lot 12. Or is it technically a modification of the, or amendment to the major subdivision? That was-
Again, I think, given both the time frame between the original approval and current, as well as Henry's represented that these lots have been deeded out, the other building lots.
Yeah.
This, I think, is properly viewed. If you got any other thoughts, let me know. But I think it's properly viewed as re-subdividing Lot 12 and the remaining lands as depicted on that gray ledge plan. So you're really focusing only on Lot 12 and the remaining lands, not the other building lots.
Okay.
That's why if you do come in, Henry, with an additional building lot, it shouldn't be called Lot 15, it should just be called
I
whatever.
didn't think that was a good number to put on there.
I mean, Wayne, do you have any further comments on that? Do you think that's a fair approach? Or that's a logical approach, I think.
I think if you're doing more than one transaction on this parcel, it's not a waiver.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Does everybody agree with that? So, you're gonna have to decide which way you wanna go. And that's pretty
I
much.
think because of the time restraint on the lot 12 adjustment, if we could just do the lot line adjustment, basically what we did in April, but just with the different lot lines. And then they can just reapply for the subdivision in a separate application. That way, if it ends up taking longer or something happens, we still get the one thing done quicker, I think.
I think we're gonna have to have a new drawing eliminating that lot. And then, if you can get that done by our next meeting, I think we could, probably move forward on that.
Okay, so I'll have them, take out Lucky Lot 13.
Is there anything else that has to be added to that drawing?
For the waiver,
For the waiver, no. I think it's got adequate information. Right. Does anybody have any, comments on that? Or is anybody think there's got more put on the, drawing? I think we're all set, just have,
I think it needs to be clear that that 138 lots is included.
It is included or not?
It is, proposed.
Yeah.
I think it has to be clear on the plat. I mean, it's shown on the location map, it's not.
Probably advisable when Rod does change the map to get 20 of us and just make sure what needs to be on that is not.
I think it's driveway, you know, standard. Being that that's basically reconstructed or relocated driveway.
It's not, it's not existing. That's an existing.
Move it from lot 13, lot 5.
There was only two entrances, one with the gate, which we were creating lot 13, and the one that's, we're used as the driveway. So they were both existing. There's even a sign out on the state that says driveway ahead. 500 feet in front of it, so it's been a driveway ever since.
Wasn't that Seymour Fox's driveway?
Yeah.
The whole time?
Originally, it was the farm that was there, and then Seymour Fox's, and then he put the gate separately, so there was always two driveways going up the property.
We can-
Looks like we're looking at me.
I can take a look at that.
And if you look at it, you'll see that it's a lot better driveway than when the gate was narrow and all kinds of turns and stuff. However, this is just straightforward, get it through. At least 20 feet wide.
So,
You have turnarounds on that, right, Henry?
That taken care of, and
You have turnarounds on that, right?
Yeah, yep. Yep, turn around.
you want to be on the agenda for the 18th?
Yep. So, get that map. Back.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, Henry, good luck. Okay, going back to our agenda, there is nobody here for the Marie's Views LLC. So we will,
Andy, I think this is yours.
which we will tentatively put them on for our next meeting. And they'll be adjourned for, until our next meeting, I'm sure we'll get some. I'm going to list it as tentative. Okay, that concludes our regular agenda. We do have some new business. Paul Angster has requested a review of a project on the Johnston.
Johnson Associates LLC is the owner. We have a new tenant that we wanted to advise you of. It is a company called Wingstop. They sell chicken wings, according to them, the best that they can get. And they're out of Texas. And they are going to ask me to file a building permit for them sometime next week unless the board has review issues. I've discussed, they wanted to put a grease trap inside the space. They're gonna go in the former Fantastic Sam space, which is 1,200 square feet. And I talked to Bill Bradley, and he said absolutely not, it has to go off the street, which is what we did with Poncho's Mexican restaurant as well. He wants a 1,000-gallon tank in the street. So that's all part of the lease agreement. They have to apply for and get, as part of their building permit, a grease trap that's approved by a town Brunswick.
Okay, just as a note, the reason Paul is here is because during the original approval of this, there was a provision put in there that the applicant has provided the town with information regarding the identity of potential tenants. The planning board shall have continuing jurisdiction to approve or disapprove tenants based on adverse impacts and or change in use pursuant of the to site plan regulations and secret. So that's why he's here. So we can discuss whether this is an appropriate tenant here. I personally do have a restaurant in there already. It seems like that has been approved before, obviously, so does anybody have any comments or suggestions?
Well, I saw in the application that it's not an eat-in restaurant, so presumably the traffic will be lower than if people were going in and sitting down and.
They have, on their building plan,
They have just a very limited space up front for pickup, takeout only. There is a shelf that they have on the front entrance, so I assume that that's for people waiting to get their orders. But there's no sit down, there's no restroom, there's no public area, other than come in and get your fodder.
Give some sort of,
Pardon me?
give some sort of sketch or picture or, a typical store that they have.
No, I can get you one, sure. They have multiple stores in other locations, but I have, all I have reviewed and approved is the signage that they want to use.
When that was Fantastic Sam's, was there designated parking places out there? Lot?
No. The only
Would
time we
they,
ever,
would this require some parking places for people?
there is no request by the tenant. The only time I've ever had the experience of requests for designated parking spaces was when we were about ready to put in a physical therapy with St. Pete's. And they asked for certain designated, and as I recall, it was approved, but then St. Pete's via Trinity, I think is the company that owns Trinity, they canned the whole idea, so it never happened.
And a bunch of those.
But we have never had any designated parking spots.
Okay.
I have had a request from the cannabis dispensary to ask for one, but they have open now and they don't seem to have any traffic. All of those concerns we had about backup traffic on the sidewalk has not yet happened or does not appear to be happening. And they haven't come back to me to ask for that.
So they are open, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they opened sometime in December.
Right after the moratorium went off, right?
Pardon me?
Right after the moratorium or whatever, the
Yeah,
state
the state of
opened
New
up.
York settled their legal matters.
I've heard them advertised.
Pardon me?
I heard them advertised on the radio and somebody asked me where's.
Yeah, and they don't, the signage situation was screwed up. They have a parapet wall sign, but nothing on the pylon sign because the sign company, so I've asked them to do that and install it, but they haven't gotten back to me yet.
I don't have a problem with Wingstop being in there. That's-
Does anybody have a problem with that?
I don't see
Now,
all the
procedurally, can we just make a motion to, or do we have to
No
have
no
something
objection
on
to
file with
the proposed tenant. That's really it. The approval did say continuing review of tenants, so I think to make the record clear, a motion saying it's been presented and the board has no objection to the tenant would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, and the process that we went through for the cannabis dispensary made sense. That was a new venture.
Right.
We're all traveling. So, this is just wings.
Okay. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Does there have to be a secret determination on it?
I don't believe so. Seeker was completed for the project.
Yes.
And this is really continuing review on that, so I think just a motion.
So we have a motion on the floor, we have a second. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, is there any other new business? I have just one thing. At the beginning of the meeting, I announced that Member Krieger was reappointed and I was appointed chairman. But I've had some discussions with Andy over several times about internally as far as operational consideration for the board to have a designated alternate chairman in case I don't make a meeting and so forth. So just officially have it on the record. And I would like to make a motion for an operational rule, adopt a rule that Linda be the acting chair in my absence.
One second.
Okay. We'll vote here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So you're officially the acting chair. Well, I always ask her to fill in for me and so forth and so on. So I think just to avoid any confusion, if I wasn't here, for one reason or another, couldn't make the meeting, that you didn't have to go through a process, because it further states, by the way, you might want to take a look at this in your zoning laws, that the town board may select the chairperson of the planning board, or on failure to do so, the planning board shall elect the chairman on its own, from its own members. So if I wasn't here, technically you would have to appoint a thing. Now we just have one in place, so that doesn't have to be an issue. All right, I don't have anything else. Is there any old business? Okay, let's review the agenda for our next meeting. We had a request earlier by email from Russ Reeves that the Stonehurst subdivision, which is the Cole Lane subdivision, Silas, that they be on the agenda for the 18th. We're gonna redo that subdivision. So we have them. We tentatively have the Breeze Views. We have Riser coming back. And I have Guardian Self Storage, which is Mr. Haas on Bush Farrow's property on the corner of Route 7 and Carroll's Road. So I have 4 items. Does anybody have anything else that should be on the agenda that I'm missing? Okay. Hearing no other business, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And Happy New Year, everyone.